When you have a black or a purple or a dark blue or a blurple, those colors create a much cleaner and clearer silhouette. Hello and welcome back to the Fat Dad Fishing Show. I'm your regular host, Rich Natoli. Back with a solo episode this week, and it's a topic actually, I don't want to use first and last names because I didn't get permission, but this was requested by Josh. Josh and I communicate quite often. He's on the water and I'm wishing I was on the water. And he said, you haven't done a nighttime fishing episode. And I said, well, I have the notes. Maybe I'll get that going really soon, and decided let's put this in. I was going to do it a couple weeks ago, but granddaughter number 2 came that day, or the day before, so I was out of town, wasn't back in time, so baby watch is over, and I'm back. And then I was going to do it last week, and Verizon decided that I wasn't going to have internet. So yeah, there you go. But I'm back now. I have the Fios, whatever it is called, working. Internet connection seems to be working pretty good. And one thing for people that have followed the show for years, knows that nighttime fishing for me is by far my favorite time to go fishing in saltwater. I'll say freshwater too. I prefer fishing at night. I just do. And it wasn't always like that. I used to love fishing, when I was little. It was fishing during the day, going out on the boat. But I found that I've caught more fish fishing at night than all daytime fishing combined in my life, I'm sure. And the reason I could say that is because it's probably not even close. It's probably exponentially more fish and better fishing at night. So it's something that I've done. It's something I've done very extensively. And look, if you want to get on some fish, especially in the summer, nighttime is the right time to hit the water. So we're going to jump into that real quick. Going to hit the sponsors first. So we have our normal flagship sponsor, Great Bay Outfitters on Radio Road in Tuckerton, New Jersey. If you're looking for native, if you're looking for the Mossa, if you're looking for Old Town, brand new kayaks, you're going to want to go there. I mean, they've got them all. And what's awesome is you can test drive them on the lagoon right there at the shop. So if there are multiple models that you're considering, you can get on the water and try them out. That is the single most important thing that you can do when buying a kayak. And Paul and his team will get you out on the water to try them out. You never know what's going to be the most comfortable. I thought that I was going to be buying a Hobie, and it turned out that I was fortunate that a guy that I didn't know just let me try his, and it really killed my knee because of the way that pedal works. So I had to go with more of the bicycle style, and I went with the Old Town. I love it. It's perfect for me. It's not perfect for everyone, so go try it out. Also, if you didn't know, Paul and his guys will do mobile installs. So if you can't make it to the shop with your kayak and you need some new electronics, or as he posted this week on Facebook, you need a new motor on it, let them know. They'll swing down there, they'll install it for you, and nobody installs like they do. It is clean, it is professional. It's not just some dude in his garage throwing stuff together and hoping it works. It's done the right way. So Great Bay Outfitters on Radio Road. Then we have Quad Stay Tuned with Kevin Driscoll at 484-633-5975. If you have a Toyota, Tacoma, Tundra, 4Runner, Lexus 460, 470, great engines in these vehicles, but an engine tune will get you more out of it. You'll get more torque, more horsepower, smoother shifting, better throttle response, and better mileage. So especially if you're towing anything, you should really look into these tunes. They're not super expensive. They're only a few $100s. And if it's not right for your vehicle, Kevin will let you know. So reach out to him. And the last one is me for real estate in southeastern Pennsylvania. If you're looking residential, even commercial, I got some commercial clients right now, a couple clients buying churches of all things as well. Reach out to me. If I can help you out, I will let you know. My number is 267-270-1145. I am centered in Montgomery County, but I go all over the place. I've even been out to York County. I got clients up in the Poconos right now, down into Philadelphia, Delaware County, all over the place. So reach out to me if there's anything I can do. And with that, enough is enough. Enough of the sponsors. It's time to get into the 9 tips for nighttime fishing that will help you to catch more fish. And I want to stress, it can be different for different species. We are talking in this episode saltwater, mid-Atlantic, and Northeast. And mid-Atlantic, I'm going to say Virginia and up. So you do have redfish in there. They'll fit in actually very closely with what striper do. So redfish are in there, speckled trout, very similar to the weakfish, not the same, but very similar, especially at night, all the way up the coast. So that's where we're really focusing on tonight. So if you want to say that's not what you do for bass, probably not, because that's not what I'm talking about. So with that said, let's jump in. And tip number 1 that I have goes into, as you guys know, biology. You got to look at the biology of the fish, and you got to look at what's going to be easiest for them. So at night, you have a couple of things working for you. The darkness is your advantage. It's what's going to help you because it does change the behavior of these predator fish at night. So we're talking striped bass, summer flounder, weakfish, speckled trout, bluefish, even black and red drum, and shark, by the way. Shark, nighttime is the best time for shark if you're fishing on the coast. I'm not talking about going offshore. It's still a great time for shark. But if you want to catch them land-based, especially in the backwaters, nighttime is just an outstanding time. And these principles work for it. So let's talk about the dark. It just seems, there's nothing you can do about it. It's nighttime. The darkness matters. Keep in mind that these fish are predators, right? So when it's dark, this is where they kind of like come out a little bit. So they're not roaming randomly. They don't have that visual ability to pick up on the fish and on the bait and on their prey at night. It's not as easy. So you have to think about how you're going to use the darkness to your advantage. And there are a couple of ways to do it. The one thing that I will say is this. The fish at night aren't going to be wanting to chase because chases become visual. So you're going to want to look for spots where you're going to have the darkness next to some structure and next to some current breaks. It's not much different than in the daytime, but it really kind of works like low tide does in the backwaters. As the tides go out, all this area that the fish can be in kind of condenses because there's less water in certain spots and they become unfishable because fish aren't just going to hang out in certain areas when there's no water there. It's similar to that. As the darkness comes in, the fish aren't going to be hanging out in the middle of a flat. They're just not. That's not where they're going to be feeding. They're going to start moving to the deeper channels. So they're going to start to condense into certain areas. This is one of the biggest reasons why I've caught more fish at night than any other time, because once you find where they are, and there are less options, but once you find where they are, they're typically stacked in there. So once you're on one, you're pretty sure that you're going to find a bunch there. Once you get one decent fluke, you know that there's going to probably be dozens of fluke in that area. There have been nights where I've just been casting off a bridge, as an example, and just pulled up dozens, like multiple dozens. And, this was a little while ago, but couple dozen keeper size fluke in there and just kept going and, tossing them back and moving on to the next one. So the first tip, use that darkness to your advantage, but you have to look at the structure. Most of these are going to be ambush predators, especially at night. Don't go for the areas that are wide open, flat areas where they're going to chase. Find the most restrictive areas that's going to funnel the bait the best. Those are the areas that are going to be producing at this time. So think about this. You have a striped bass. It's going to be sitting next to, let's say, a bridge piling. It's going to burn almost no energy as it's sitting behind the piling as the current's going through, and it's really going to let that current do its thing. So during the day where it may have been sitting off of a sod bank, it's quite often going to be in the blackest area around a bridge. Let's say they're bridge lights. It's going to be in the darker areas, sitting behind something, so it's using very little energy. That way you can pick up from the light areas near it. It can see a little bit, but it's going to be holding in that area in the darkness so that it gets a much better ambush point. And as things are coming around those pilings, it's just funneling the bait right to them. So it's not necessarily a much different area than you would fish, but there are less areas. There are less areas that you would fish at night because there's just, there are better areas close by. So they're going to go to the best areas and not just accept like the good areas. So hopefully that makes sense. But you want to take advantage of that and know that the darkness is going to start funneling, just like low tide does, these fish into certain areas. Next one is and this is a really big one. This is one that I struggle with. Slow down more than you think you should. One of the things that you have to look at nighttime, well, there are two things. I'm going to talk about the first one right now, is they're going to rely very heavily on vibration of baits. My favorite bait for striped bass at night is actually a rattle trap. I don't really talk about it much because people make fun of it, but it works. My brother is in the chat. He can tell you the number of rattle traps that we went through when we were fishing together a lot for striped bass. It's just ridiculous. That rattle worked very slow is going to help them to hone in the dark on those baits. So you get the fish that are sometimes visual feeders during the day, like a weakfish, and they're going to rely a lot on those vibrations. They're going to feel it. They're going to be moving more towards the underwater sounds than they are necessarily on what they're seeing. Now, it is important that they can see, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. It is important that they're able to see the bait as they're coming up on it to attack it, but slow it down more than you think so it stays in their vision longer, and make sure that you have some type of vibration on there. Think of very aggressive paddle tails. One of the things that a lot of people use are like the swim shads, or they don't have a tail on it really. It's just kind of like a fluke. Go with something with the aggressive paddle tail, something that's going to put the vibrations out in the water, slow it down, and let that work for you. You can actually even get away with dead sticking a lot of times, where you wouldn't necessarily during the day. You can actually almost dead stick things as long as you're allowing the current to move the baits. So make sure that you're slowing down. When you're tossing out, you definitely do not want to be going faster than the current. So again, I'm going to talk about bridges and sod banks a lot, because at night, that's typically where people are going to fish. Not a lot of people, even with boats, go out on their boats at night. It's just another added thing to worry about. Other boats, drunk people that think it's cool to drive their boat to the bar, people that don't understand how to put lights. So a lot of people will leave their boats at home and they'll head out in a kayak and stick close to the banks and to the structure, or they'll just go and fish from land, whether it's on the beach or on a jetty, or it's in the backwater somewhere on a bridge or a sod bank. So I'm going to focus on those. So one of the big things is the current. Now, when I'm fishing that current, if the current's coming through at 1 knot, I want to be at 1 knot or slower. It's really 1 knot max. And I want to have that vibration in there. So something very aggressive. If you have to go a little heavier to keep it slower than the current, do that. The slower, the better. You're going to thank me for that once you get out there and you start doing it. It can drive you crazy, though. It can absolutely drive you crazy if you're a fast, aggressive fisherman. But generally speaking, not all the time, but generally speaking, slow it down more than you think you should and start the night off that way. If you get into a really, really aggressive feed, especially if it moves to top water, then you don't necessarily have to do that as much. But if you're going anything subsurface, slow it down. All right, next one. Tip number 3. Darkness alone is not necessarily going to create the feeding activity itself. A lot of people think, okay, it got dark. Now let's start fishing. The fish are up. It's not the case. It's not solely the dark that makes fishing at night what it is. You have to combine it with something else. So think about it this way. It gets dark. That adds one factor that's going to be an advantage for you. But really, the most important still remains the same thing it is during the day. It's the current. So you're not necessarily, as soon as it gets dark, going out and fishing. You got to match it to that current. Now, if it just gets dark and you have a good current, okay, that's a good time. But the better time would be kind of the tide shift later in the night, where it's full dark and you have the shift in the tide. So if you can get the first 2 hours of a tide, or the last 2 hours of a tide where it's just about to switch, that's where you want to fish. Once it's dark, then that's where you kind of get the confluence of multiple things together. So you get the darkness, which is going to concentrate them into those ambush points. And then you have that current that's really moving the bait into those ambush points. Now you have two really important things. That's why you see a lot of these night fishermen, especially striped bass fishermen, they'll fish hours. They don't just go out for an hour or two at night. They'll be there for a very long time, just setting up and waiting for those factors to come together. So think about a couple of things. Creek mouths on the outgoing. It's a great place to go. You're typically going to have a drop in depth. You're going to have a natural feeder or a natural food highway, which is going to push the bait into a predictable area. And if you get it at full dark, you're just going to have an advantage there. Think about for weakfish as an example. Look for that moving water around the sod banks when it's full dark with a very slow presentation with some vibration. That's what's going to start to build on itself in order to get you on these fish. So that's an important one. It's one where, I don't think I have to talk about it a ton, but it is an important thing to keep in mind. Just because it's dark doesn't necessarily mean it's great. Get dark and get the good current. Now you have two things working for you. Now you start getting into the best potential times to be on the water. And again, it could be 10 o'clock at night. It could be 2 in the morning. It could be 3 in the morning. And sometimes you're going to have to fish through multiple tide shifts. Maybe it's the first hour of incoming, and then it's the last hour of incoming and the first hour of outgoing. So you have a long time in between. So be prepared for something like that. All right. The next one, number 4, it should, I don't even know if I really need to go much into it, but you got to use your ears more than your eyes. And one thing that if you don't fish at night often, you're going to notice is just how much movement there is on the top of the water. You're going to see stuff that you don't see during the day. It's easier to pick up on the slight movements at the top. So you'll see these little schools of shiners. You'll see all of this moving around. But what you really want to do is kind of not just focus on that. You have to go a little bit deeper. You're going to get rewarded if you can start listening and start to discern what one sound is as compared to another sound. So you need to learn what it sounds like when peanut bunker is flipping. One of the big ones for our region is you really need to learn what it sounds like when a bass is slurping off of the top of the water column. It's a sound, and you're not even necessarily going to see anything. You're going to hear it off in the distance, and it's important that you know what that is, because you're going to change up your tactics if you know it's a striped bass that's doing it. If you're a little further south, do you know what it sounds like when shrimp is popping? Do you know what it sounds like when mullet is jumping? All of those are going to give you hints as to where to go. If you start hearing scattering bait, that's going to be more important than seeing bait moving around at the top of the water. And I will say, you're going to get a little bit of confusion from time to time, because any little puff of air over calm water at night looks like fish. It's not necessarily fish. And here's one that I learned that I think I kind of learned it by accident. One thing that you should really try to listen for is current. And you can actually hear current, and you can hear when the current is actually disturbing the water. That oftentimes is going to be a good place where you're going to have an eddy, where you're going to have something that's going to be more attractive to these ambush predator fish. So if you can hear as the currents pick up where it's kind of gurgling around a piling, that's probably the first piling you should be tossing at. If you can hear it coming off of a rock on a seawall, you're going to want to go around that area. Because again, go back to the very beginning. We're talking about the current. We're talking about the ambush points. Those are ambush points that you can't see, but you can hear them. So you got to kind of dial in with that. The other part of listening is, and I'm going to bring this up again later, but it can be dangerous on the water especially if you're on the water, out on the water. So make sure that your ears are open. If you're in a kayak, I can't tell you how many times I've almost been hit at night. I've almost been hit more times during the day, but that's just because there's more boats, I think. But at night, if you're not listening, man, you could get snuck up on quick. You may hear behind you that you're about to hit a buoy when you're drifting with the current. So just keep your ears open. You'll hear the dangers and the things that you need to be aware of around you, but you'll also hear those signs of the fish: mullet jumping, shrimp popping, all that's the bass slurping. That's the big one. That's the big one for many of you that are watching and listening. If you know what a bass slurping sounds like, that can make for a great night, because you're going to hear exactly where they're feeding and you're not necessarily going to see it. You probably won't, especially if it's a cinder worm hatch. You're not going to know exactly where they are, but they're going to be slurping them, and you're going to be able to target that area. So, yeah, use your ears more than your eyes. Turn off the speakers. Take the earbuds out. Stop listening to your music and listen to what's around you, because that is absolutely critical when you're fishing at night. All right. The next one, number 5, kind of goes along with that, and it goes into the moonlight. And this is something that a lot of people don't really think about, I think, as much as they really should. So moonlight is absolutely critical. And one of the things that you will notice is it's actually easier and more productive, generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, it's easier and more productive to target these fish in the darker nights. So if you have a full moon, it can be difficult. Not only do you have the increased currents when you have these spring tides on the new or the full moon, you also have them on the new moon, but the difference is that added light kind of detracts from funneling those fish into those nighttime areas. So it's kind of like in daytime fishing, when you have the quarter moon tides where not as much water is moving, it could kind of detract from things. It's not going to funnel the fish into, they're a little bit more scattered. They don't really condense around the current breaks as much because they don't have to. They don't have to fight it. If there's a lot of moon, they don't have to move into these areas that are, dark, up against bridges and so on and so forth. They can stay a little bit more scattered because they do have more visual feeding available to them. So if you have those bright nights, keep that in mind. It's not going to be a help. It may be easier for you if you're on the water to see what you're doing. You may not have to have a headlamp or anything like that, but it's not going to help you. So I always would encourage you, if you want to do nighttime fishing, you don't want to go, all the time. You have to select certain days. Pick the nights with a new moon or close to it, or a quarter moon. Stay away from that full moon. It spreads the fish out a little bit. What you'll also find is when you have those brighter moons, you're going to have a lot of the fish sorry, let me step back. When you have the darker moons, you're going to find that you will have the fish up in the shallower waters as well. It's another thing that works to their advantage. If they compress the water column, the bait's right there. So you're going to want to also look at the shallower things. And you will notice that the darker the day, quite often, you're going to have the more aggressive feeds that are going on. Especially, again, go back to striped bass. I've also noticed it with redfish. Again, they behave very similarly at nights, very similar places. And you'll find also that cloudy nights really, in my opinion, will outperform any of the clear nights that you have for the same reason. So if you have even a quarter moon and one night it's cloudy and the other night it's not cloudy, you're probably going to be better off with that darker night with the clouds. So it's just stacking these things on top of each other. So look for that darker. And if you have to get the dark from the clouds, do that. Schedule around that time. All right. Next one, number 6, match your lure profile to what the fish are going to be looking for. And basically what I'm saying is the silhouette absolutely matters. I talked about the vibration being very important, and it is. It's very important because it gives them something to latch onto when they can't see. But here's the kicker, and not everybody realizes this or understands just how impactful it is. Fish can see in total darkness. They can still see in the water. That's why you go with the dark colors at night when you're not fishing in the lights. Now, think about what I just said. When you're not fishing directly in lights under structure, you're quite often going to be better off with the darker lures with a significant profile. And that's because when you have a black or a purple or a dark blue or a blurple, those colors create a much cleaner and clearer silhouette. So let's say you go a large silhouette with a dark color, it's just going to be easier for them to see. Now add in the vibration I talked about earlier and move it slow. Now they can see it easily. They can feel it. It's moving slowly. It's staying in the strike zone. They don't have to chase, and they don't have to worry about losing the visual on it. They're much more likely to attack those. So think about the dark colors, think about the silhouette. You want something a little bit beefier as far as the silhouette. Don't go with these, don't match the hatch on rain bait or spearing. Go thicker. Go with something that's a little bit more robust. Get that vibration on there as well. And you're going to do much better than, if you're just tossing out grubs with a tiny little twister tail. They're not going to see the movement on that twister tail nearly as much as they're going to feel the movement on a thick, aggressive paddle tail. All right, so that's matching the lure profile and the silhouette. Very, very important. Next one, this is number 7, and I'm going to qualify this a little bit. And let me start off by saying this. During the daytime, I think that the fishermen that get really mad about people that make some noise on the surface of the water in most areas are just nuts. I don't think it really does much of anything to interfere with a bite unless you can't catch a fish and you need to blame something. Now, I don't include in that people dropping stuff on the deck of a boat. That really echoes down through the water column. But during the day, you have a lot of noise on the water. You have a lot of boats going through. Think about the last couple of weeks in New York harbors, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, out on the Chesapeake. You have a lot of boats. You have a lot of people. You have a lot of yelling. You have a lot of stereos going. So during the day, I don't think it matters that much. I once got yelled at by a guy because I was talking to a friend and he was fishing next to us near a bridge. And he was yelling at us that we were ruining the fishing. We were catching. I think he just didn't know what he was doing and he wanted to take it out on us. But once it hits nighttime, I change all that. Quiet does matter at night. And the reason is all that extra sound that I just talked about, the people partying and drinking and jumping in the water and flying around the buoys and the channels, hitting sandbars, all the good stuff that the people that don't know what they're doing do, that's pretty much gone at night. It becomes a much more peaceful environment, which means if you're dropping a tackle box on the deck of your boat, it's going to be that much worse. So be careful about that. Don't talk loud. That's not natural. They haven't heard it in hours. And now all of a sudden you're playing, as John Creeley does, Kid Rock on your kayak and it's going right through the hull. I could tell you they probably don't like Kid Rock. They probably don't want to listen to you singing it. That can actually throw things off. So at night, fish will hear everything through that water. There's not a lot of sound around you. So make sure that you stay quiet. Don't drop your pliers. Don't slam your tackle boxes. Don't go stomping down the docks when you're running down and you see a fish in the lights. Take your time, go slow, don't disturb things, and try to match the environment. If it's a peaceful environment at night, you should be peaceful. If there is a big, 4th of July going on, there's fireworks all over the place, there's booms all over, you're probably okay. But generally speaking, it's a lot more peaceful and you should be too. You don't want to come off as unnatural. You don't want to put their spidey senses up. You just want to slip in there with your bait, match something natural, get them to see that silhouette, feel that vibration, bring it slowly past them and get them to strike. And dropping your pliers is not going to help with that. All right, so that's number 7. Number 8. I don't know if this is so much a tip, but I'm just going to tell you, in my experience, nighttime is probably the best time for the bigger fish. I have caught literally all my biggest fish on every species that I was able to target at night. I think they become more aggressive at night. They feel safer out in the water. If you're already the top dog out there or among the top dogs in the food chain, you're going to feel pretty safe a lot of the time. But at night, you just get that much safer feeling when you can hide in the dark, just like the bait fish do. So if you want your biggest fluke, fish at night. That's when I got all of mine. If you want your biggest weak fish, absolutely fish at night. Great fish for fishing at night. And a couple of things lead into that. So they feel safer because of the dark. They feel more confident in their feeding because it's more restricted areas where they can really tuck into currents and current breaks and get the feed coming directly to them. But the other thing, especially in the summer, is the water cools. And even if it only cools a degree or two, it's going to add more dissolved oxygen into that water. It's going to be more comfortable for them. And think about the athletes that have to acclimate themselves before playing in Denver because they get short of breath. It's the same thing. You get more oxygen in the colder water, and you get more oxygen in the air when you're closer to sea level, as opposed to being up, in Denver, mile high. So as the water cools, you're going to get more of that dissolved oxygen into the water, gives them more energy, makes it easier for them. Less boat traffic, less noise, less fishing pressure. So you're not going to have 83 yahoos around you, pounding the bottom with bucktails. It's going to be you and maybe one other guy. I think it all lends itself to getting those bigger fish. So I don't know that that's necessarily a tip, but I just want to put that out there. If you want the bigger fish, try it at night. Think about also that dissolved oxygen. If we go back to what I said about not necessarily fishing as soon as it's dark, well, it does help when the water can cool a little bit, especially at this time of the year where you have 94 degrees hitting that water all day. Half of the day it's up in the shallows on the incoming tide, and then it kind of funnels out. If you can get through that tide cycle, get that water cleaned out, the fresher water coming in, it's going to come in, it's going to stay cooler, and it's just going to wake up those fish. So oftentimes you'll get those bigger fish that are struggling a little bit more with the lower oxygen. They're just going to wake up more when they have more oxygen. So nighttime just becomes a smarter time for them to feed, and it can be much easier. All right. And then the last one that I have, learn to fish. I'm going to throw another one after this probably. Learn to fish the structure that you already know. So this doesn't mean go to the same spot that you always go to. But what it does mean is the nighttime is not the best time to go to new areas and start exploring. If you're going to go out and go exploring, go with somebody and go prepared for bad things to happen. If you're walking a sod bank at night, it could be fine. If you're walking a sod bank at night that you've never been on, it can be dangerous. I've told this story in the past, and I'll just mention it today. There was a time where I was fishing brigantine in the salt marsh areas, and I was walking across the salt marsh. It's during the day, and I took one step, solid, next step, solid, next step. I went all the way to my hip down into the mud. So it was bad. I'm not the most flexible person in the world, but my I believe it was my left leg is now my knee and my chin, and my right leg is totally straight, and I'm stuck. I can't get out. Now, this was during the day, so I didn't feel too overly concerned. If that had happened at night, that would have been a whole different thing. I was only about a foot from the edge of the sod bank, and you never know what could happen on a sod bank. Sometimes they just break away and you end up in the water. I happen to know people that fish that sod bank all the time. They knew exactly where that happened. They were able to point to it on Google Maps and say, yeah, it was right here, wasn't it? I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, you don't go there. Well, I would have known that if I had fished that. So all of that to say, be very careful about exploring new areas at night that you're not familiar with. Scout it during the day, get to understand the structure. Not only will you be safer, but you're going to be more successful. It's like scouting a beach for surf fishing at low tide. Go through and understand what the structure is. Where is the drop off as compared to this bridge that you're going to fish tonight? Is it over here? Is it over there? How far off of the pilings before you have these drop offs? Look up. Where are the lights going to be on? Where are the shadow lines going to be cast across the water when this bridge is lit up at 2 a.m? It's going to make you more successful. It's going to make you safer. Be very careful when you're on the rock piles and on the jetties. Have a good light. In those cases, you'll have the surf guys mad if you're shining lights on the water. I get that, but you got to be careful. You have to make sure that you have the safe footing. You make sure that you have an escape route. And I do recommend, if you're going to go anywhere that's off the beaten path, go with somebody else, because it's nothing worse than being in an emergency and being alone. And maybe if you have an idiot buddy with you who you can't really trust, but at least you got somebody that can call for help, that's better than getting stuck somewhere by yourself in the middle of the night. So I'm just putting that out there because I do get concerned about people that tell me about bad things that happen, and then bad things that happen at night. There's a lot of near misses out there that people have had. So, all right. So those are 9 tips The bonus one is, I think I already mentioned it. Commit to staying longer. If you're going to fish at night, fish at night. If you fish, during the day, 4-6 hours, that's what your nighttime fishing should be. If you can go through a full tide cycle, meaning the different current flows, you're going to be better off. Be patient. Just because it's dark doesn't mean that there's fish, but once you get on them, you're probably going to find them all stacked in the same area. So commit to staying a little bit longer. Enjoy the overnight. You will meet some of the best fishermen you've ever met out there on the water at night. There are some guys that I met when I was a teenager fishing Cape May County bridges, and they were freaking amazing. And they taught me a lot about how to fish at night. They taught me a lot. Actually, I learned a lot about weakfish from these guys and how to target them at night and how to be successful, which is why it's one of the fish that I can be really successful at when I decide I'm going to target them. So with that said, there are also a lot of people out there that you don't want to meet. So, if you're fishing AC and the bars have just closed, you might want to be aware of where you are at that time and who you're with. But yeah, be ready to stay a little bit longer. Make sure that you're fishing the shadow lines. Fishing at night and fishing a light doesn't mean that you fish in the light. It means that you take advantage of the shadow lines around the light. So make sure you're doing that. Those are just some extra tips I'm throwing in there. I think most people know about shadow lines, so I didn't want to really go into that as a topic, but it's worth a mention. All right, so a couple of questions in here. Tim Murray. Tim's question, do fish move up shallow at night? They can. They really can. If in the darker time periods, they definitely will. The predators will move up. It really depends the species of the fish, but think about this. They can move up there because you're going to have less of a water column to go through to get the bait. So as long as you have that predictable bait flow, you're going to find them up there. One thing that really works well, and this is a good example of why shallow can work really well. Think about just flounder gigging at night. They're in like 6 inches of water, and there are some slabs that are up there in 6 inches of water at night. It's a good place to go. So yes, I would say you can absolutely go shallow at night. Chris Matuson has talked many times about he will catch some of his biggest striped bass in the back at night in the dark in 6 to 12 inches of water, and that's it. And if it's deeper, he doesn't really focus on it that much. Maybe he'll go up to 3 feet, but you go 20 yards to the side and you're down in 10, 12, 15 feet. He's not focusing there. They're feeding up on those shallower areas for the condensed water column at nighttime. So yes, I would definitely be looking at fishing shallower. Here, okay, KB, here's a comment. I've done good fishing fluke this season with 5-inch gulp, although every other species I've done horribly with. Black sea bass, porgies, stripers, even blues. All right, that's a good report up in Norwalk, Connecticut. Trying to think of why that 5-inch gulp wouldn't work. Unless you're just saying everything else sucks this year. It's a tough year. It's been a tough year. I will say this. After that fluke episode on, what's wrong with the fluke season, I got so much hate coming in by email. I even got some hate text, which I hadn't gotten before. It was actually kind of funny, people yelling at me. But I started getting a lot of reports that said, you know what? It just kicked off the day after we did that episode. Yeah, so it looks like the fluke has picked up all up and down New York, New Jersey. Maryland is apparently just kicking right now. But I have heard that the porgies are not very good. The striped bass never really picked up in New York, as an example, and Connecticut. I can't tell you why. I don't really know. I don't really know what would cause that. But 5-inch gulp is a good bait to use at night if you can get some vibration on it. So, use some blades above it. Put a rattle in it. But the scent just adds another possibility for you. All right. And while we're getting some technical issues, I'm hoping that this will come through correctly. Yeah. Yeah, technical issues. I don't know if this is coming through. I can see the live feed. It's not moving. Hopefully this comes through on audio pretty well. Sorry about the buffering, guys. It's weird because I'm showing on my control panel an excellent connection with YouTube, but YouTube is just not streaming well, but the audio version should be in good shape. But yeah, so that's it. I wanted to do a quick hit on these tips. So there's 9+ tips on fishing at night. I'd love to dive into more detail later, but be more specific to species. I'm thinking maybe striped bass would be a good one to do later in the year. So look for that coming up. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank everybody for the well wishes on my new granddaughter. Very happy, and I'm still tired 2 weeks later from that entire weekend. But thanks for tuning in. I'll be back next week. Don't have the topic yet, but yeah, I'm going to be back. Looking forward to the next one. Everyone, enjoy this weather. Get out there between these storms, which are really messing with some of the different areas. The salinity is just going bananas, up and down as these storms come through. But fight your way through it. Those fish are out there. I saw this week multiple 8+ backwater fluke in New York, Connecticut, and I think there was one in Jersey as well that I saw just sitting out there on Facebook and Instagram. So get out there and get them, post those pictures. And until next week, everyone, get out there, get on the water, and get some tight lines.